is House Majority Leader Joe Shekarchi. Joe, thanks for coming on today.
It is my pleasure. I always enjoy GoLocal, but I now am honored and proud to be your first guest ever at the Rhode Island State House.
Well, we're happy to be up here because there's so much going on right now. You can probably hear in the background, folks are coming in as we're going into session here shortly, but really want to talk with you. I just saw Majority Leader Shekarchi at the airport yesterday, and they had just announced another route for Frontier Airlines to Myrtle Beach.
3 more flights coming in. It's exciting times at the airport. Things are going very well. The growth has been tremendous and phenomenal. The team down at the airport, Jonathan Savage, the director, Iftikhar Ahmed, have done a phenomenal job. And it's about results, and they're delivering results. So the airport continues to grow. And as the airport grows, that's good for the state. It's good for the city of Warwick. So let's hope for continued success at the airport.
And there's a little caveat about that continued growth at the airport, looking to rename the airport from TF Green to Rhode Island International.
That has been proposed by the airport. I'm a sponsor of the House version. Senator McCaffrey is a sponsor of the Senate version. That bill also includes, but not many people say the second half of that bill, it also includes the renaming of the Interlink to TF Green Interlink, which is a significant infrastructure improvement. And that's probably cost more than the airport was when TF Green was originally named after the airport. So, and the reality is it's significant. It's something that the airport's marketing studies have shown will help brand the airport, help market the airport. If it helps success, I'm all for it. But I will say this, there will be hearings, and I have heard from people who do not support that, and I encourage them and I welcome them to come up to the airport, come up to the State House and talk about the airport in terms of why they think it should remain the same or they have any alternatives. It's an open process and an open dialogue.
So one of the things when I had spoken with Iftikhar when I was at the airport yesterday, that he was really advocating for the name change is flights are great going out. It's really for flights coming in that people have that recognition of where it is they're flying to.
That's what they have told me, and the studies have shown it would help the airport. If we can do this and it helps the airport, I'm all in favor of it, as long as we continue to recognize the contributions that Senator Green, Governor Green has made, and by renaming the Interlink, which is a significant infrastructure project, as I said, I believe we can accomplish both.
Well, we're going to continue to keep an eye on the airport, both the renaming, additional routes moving forward. You've got airport experience.
Many years ago, I worked for the airport for a short time, well before I was an elected official, and I helped them with the expansion. The city of Warwick, 5, 6, 7 years ago, filed an appeal to a federal decision to prevent the expansion, and the airport hired me, and we were able to, within 60 days, settle that, get the federal funding, and here today, as you see, the product of that. So it's exciting.
Now we're international.
It's a great thing.
Where's your next trip to, Joe?
My next trip to Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm going to go with the speaker to a legislative conference. It's 2 days. It's a Friday and a Saturday, and we're leaving at 5:55 in the morning, so it's an early morning trip.
From Green.
From TF Green.
From Green, of course. Well, wanted to start with a couple of pieces of legislation that are important to you before we go into broader ones. Let's start with the mastectomy legislation that you're very passionate about, and this is healthcare coverage so that women can be covered to get the support and service. It's
women and men. There are men who also have breast cancer. So it's not just women specific, but it's a good piece of legislation. It's a piece of legislation that I introduced last year, and it basically updates current law. In 2007, approximately 11 years ago, the General Assembly passed legislation which said that mastectomies mandated that they be covered and 100% of that cost. Over the last 11 years, we all know healthcare has changed, both federally, by regulation, by statute, by federal procedures. So, and what's happened is it's whittled away. I've had many people contact me who said, I had to go through the cost and expense, and I thought I was covered. I found out that all the extra and ancillary equipment and medical needed devices are not covered, and they're very expensive. So I want those things to be covered, and I understand there's a cost. I'm not naive, and I know that'll be recycled into the premium, but there'll be a process for any insurance companies to recoup that, which is to go through the Department of Business Regulation to adjust their rates accordingly. I think it's important, and I think it's a cost worth bearing. It's not a taxpayer cost. It is a policyholder cost.
And how long, I mean, were you considering this, talking with people? I mean, when you put forth this legislation, what was the process that went into this?
Actually, it was something I worked on a lot last year, but it didn't come in until at the end of the session last year. And it really wasn't enough time for people to, it's a major shift in a lot of the insurance regulations, and Blue Cross and United Health and other people had concerns about it. And what I said to them was, look, I don't think the legislation will go this year, meaning last year. And I'm hoping that I'll reintroduce it. And I did that. It was one of the first pieces of legislation that came in this year. So we'll have a hearing soon, this month of March, and we'll go through the process. And I encourage anybody who has a strong feeling about it to move forward. And I also want to point out that I have surveyed my district. It is about 99% of the constituents in my district want this kind of coverage, medical coverage.
Do we know if other states do this, or are you just myopically focused on Rhode Island?
No, I try to look at this throughout a broad sense whenever I enact new legislation, and it is the trend to have states cover this as well.
Okay, so there's a couple pieces of legislation of importance to you. Any of yours you want to mention before we move on to the broader one?
No, that's about it. I have good jobs, jobs credit stuff. I have some stuff for Rhode Island builders. I have some stuff for the League of Cities and Towns. So all that stuff will go through the legislative process, and I hope that I think they're all good pieces of legislation. But I have no illusions they're all going to pass. But I believe they're good legislation.
Now you've got one though for the Board of Elections for transparency purposes. Talk with us a little bit about that.
The Board of Elections actually is one of the few agencies of state government that can make their own rules and regulations, and they're exempt from the Administrative Procedures Act. And this piece of legislation that I'm working collectively with Common Cause on, and the ACLU, would put them in the same process as every other agency. So when the Board of Elections makes their rules, they have to follow the same procedures as any other agency in Rhode Island. And I will point out, I believe that the Board of Elections is either in support of this or they're at least not objecting to this.
I was going to ask about this if you had conversations with them.
I have not had direct conversations, but I did meet with John Marion about it, and he feels very passionate about it. So, and it was in last year, so I think it's got a good shot of going this year.
Okay, pieces of legislation of importance to Representative Joe Shekarchi. Let's go broader now here. We did just see last week a new poll by the building trades regarding the POSOC's proposal for the Apex building. We did hear from the speaker that he received the poll, had some questions about the questions. Where do things stand with the POSOCs?
The POSOCs are the legislation was passed by the Senate. It's over to the House. I think we had a caucus on it. I think it's been universally known that that piece of legislation from the House perspective needs some work. And I think we're in the process of doing that. Now, are we able to get it to a point where we think it's a good piece of legislation that protects the taxpayers and moves forward? I don't know. We'll have to see. But I know the speaker's coming on your show later on, and I'm sure you're going to ask him that question. He's been a little bit more involved in that decision than I am. But, we have people in our caucus who are very strongly in favor of it, and we have people in our caucus who are very strongly against it. So we're doing the balancing test. We're weighing it. We're trying to find that I'm willing to roll up my sleeves and go to work and see what I can do to make this happen.
And there are really a lot of undecideds. Do you think people are kind of firmly in camps, or are there a lot of folks that are still waiting to see, especially, as you mentioned, there's probably going to be revised legislation. I'm assuming that there's a lot of, let's see what that looks like.
I think that's part of it. I also think that, some people have passionate constituents who feel strongly one way or the other. Then there's some constituents who have very little contact with their representatives. So those representatives have a little bit more of a leeway and a little bit more of a ability to see what the final product is. Before some legislators get contacted by their constituents, say, I'm adamantly opposed to it, don't do it. Some say, I'm adamantly in favor of it, it's a great piece of legislation, do it. Then there's the ones in the middle.
What have you been hearing from your constituents?
I have doing a survey. The survey hasn't been completed, but I don't have final numbers, but I think it's around, again, this is in process, around 50-50.
50-50, and we'll see the results. You'll put those out there when you have them.
I don't know yet, but I'll share them with you. I don't know if I'll publicize to the whole world, but if you want them. You guys have done some polling yourself.
We have done some polling with John Del Vope up at Harvard. We're going to be working with him as well moving forward, again, to get the temperature gauge, not just on the POSOCs, but it's an election year. There's going to be a lot that we're going to be keeping the pulse on. But as you mentioned, Leader, with new legislation, that's a new game changer with people having to react to. Do you think we have enough time being here? It's just beginning of March, but to go through that process if there is revised legislation?
Yes, and I think so, because it's been around for a while. It's not a new piece of legislation. It's been around. It's been around in some people's mind 3 years, other people a year or 2 years. So yes, I do think there's time. I don't know what the final outcome will be, but I do think there's time.
Okay, let's go to a question that has been in recent weeks, since the most recent school shooting in Florida. We have seen this red flag legislation. We've heard this from the speaker on it. We did see the governor take an executive order on it, but the legs really reside in the assembly to make any action forward.
So there's a lot. Every year, there's an awful lot of gun legislation that comes in, and for the most part, most of those legislative initiatives don't pass. Last year, we passed the domestic violence bill, which was very important regarding gun safety for domestic abusers. This year, I think I'm a co-sponsor of 3 pieces of legislation who I think they have a good shot of going, and that's the bump stock bill, and that bill prevents bump stocks that would have certainly had an impact in Las Vegas. The other bill is the red flag bill, as you talked about, which would allow police, and I want to talk about that in a minute, but would allow police and authorities to red flag someone and take their weapon away for a short time until there's a hearing before a judge. Mm-hmm. And that way they're able to prove whether they're stable enough and to have a piece of legislation, a piece of firearm or not. And then the third is to raise the age from 18 to 21 to own basically a rifle or a shotgun.
And we just saw up here people turning out in support just recently for gun control measures. And do we expect, huge turnouts for if these bills get hearings?
There are always large turnouts. There are certain bills that are always large turnouts. When we were talking before about the red flag bill, 2 years ago, the General Assembly, I sponsored a bill called First Aid Mental Health. Okay. Senator Archibald did the Senate version of that, and that prepared policemen to go through nationally certified, recognized mental health. And they're able to decide, is Kate Nagel crazy and she should have a gun, or is Kate Nagel not? So they're trained, they're getting proper training. So I feel very comfortable with the police making that decision initially and then ultimately by a court of law and a judge.
And what have we been hearing from the NRA and gun advocacy groups saying their response to red flag legislation? Are they going to push back and say there's no situation in which you can take guns?
I don't know what they're going to do, but and I've been getting constituent emails on both sides of the equation, so we'll have to wait and see what happens.
And also, let's talk a little bit about the budget. There's obviously big issues moving forward. How do you think that is going to be tackled in 2018? When we've seen these kind of one-off measures, we've seen stopgaps, we've seen early retirement buyouts by the governor. Talk a little bit about for sports gaming.
That's a very unique element of the budget because as of today, it's not legal to have sports betting anywhere in the country other than in Nevada. And some small amounts, I think Delaware and Oregon have limited amounts of sports betting. But there's a anticipation by this administration and other states. We're not unique in that respect, and other states regarding the ability to have the Supreme Court allow sports gambling. And if that's the case, we're going to be ready so we can get up and running quickly and hopefully get some of that revenue. How much revenue, I don't know, but there are always projections. I think the governor has put a projection of about $25 million. So hopefully the Supreme Court will rule in the favor of the state of New Jersey that would allow sports betting and that rather will be up and running. And if not, then we have a $25 million budget hole to fill. But we'll fill it. We do every year. Every year there's always a give and take in the budget. Every year we talk about, keep in mind we're talking about a $9 billion budget.
And so we were talking about a $16 million shortfall potentially this year, but the following year we're looking at a potential as big as $200 million. How does the state even begin to tackle that?
Those are called outliers, structural deficits, and what basically has to be, we have to control our spending. We cannot continue to spend on everything. State of Rhode Island is not a big bucket of money that anybody can just glom into and take some out of it. The state of Rhode Island is limited resources, and we have to control our spending. We have to prioritize it. Again, it's $9 billion to take care of our safety net, make sure that we take care of the programs that actually need to be funded, and the other stuff we have to do a balancing test and a priority test.
And finally, while I have you here, and I'm looking at my laundry list of things to talk about, what are the important items that we haven't hit upon for the rest of the session?
I think we've hit upon them. I think the poor socks, I think guns, and the budget, and that's pretty much it. Those are the 3 biggest issues that we have to deal with in General Assembly. There's always something else that hasn't come up yet, so we'll see what happens. I don't know what that'll be, but we'll see it as the process moves forward, and we'll go forward.
Before I let you go, you've got a pretty big war chest, leader.
I don't know about that.
You're always in the tops list What are the plans moving forward?
I don't have any plans. I plan on running for re-election. Like a good Boy Scout, always prepared. I'm grateful. People have to remember that I've been involved in public service in a kind of like a different capacity than people see me now for over 30 years. So I have supported and helped many candidates over the years. And in the reality is when I decided to enter elected office, they have overwhelmingly supported me, and I'm grateful for that support. It's broad-based. It's primarily all Rhode Island money, a lot of Warwick money, a lot of clients, friends, and family.
Okay, so tell viewers anything else you want them to know while you're here today.
I think this on live. This is a great medium. I welcome you to the State House. Please continue to do this. I think it's very important that we as legislators connect directly to the voters and the constituents. And I welcome you here, and I say thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Majority Leader Joe Shekarchi.
My pleasure, Kate. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Terry, how are you?
How are you?
Good, buddy. How are you?
I'm not letting you go.
I'm right here.
No, I'm already kidding.
All right.